The first step in ensuring that you practice to be a professional in the culinary business is to learn your knife cuts. These are classical knife cuts that every culinary student learns, and I'm going to be going over the main ones with you for this week. Let's get started. I have my stabilized cutting board, I have my knife, I have my steel, and I just wanted to show you that I happen to have a three-dimensional knife cut guide. And this is just something that I wanted to show you because a lot of students think it's so cool and interesting. Please do not feel like you have to purchase this at all. Just a normal ruler is fine, and you can definitely go without this fancy smanchy thing. So I want to have that as a guide and as a point of reference. So when I have my cuts, I have something to compare them to. So here's my prepared tray, and I have everything ready. You see my name tag there and my containers as well. So that when I'm cutting and I have everything ready to go, I understand where to put it all, and that if I'm missing an empty cup, then I can think to myself, oh, what am I missing? So that's why it's important to have everything ready ahead of time. This is part of your professionalism and mise en place. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a peeled carrot, and I'm going to do 2-inch measurements because the cuts, maximum length of the cuts are 2 inches for the ones that I'm going to be utilizing for the carrot. Now in your ingredient kit, you probably received more than 1 carrot and more than 2 potatoes. And that's so that you can practice. Remember that I have done these cuts for a long time. And so, for me, I don't need too much product. But for you, if you have never done them before, feel free to use all the product. Please don't worry about that. So I'm still cutting 2-inch pieces from my carrot. And you can even do these cuts with all carrot. You can do these cuts with all potato. It's really up to you. So I find that it's actually easiest to do the cuts with all potato as it's a little softer, but some people like to see the addition of the carrot. So I was just showing you there that what I'm doing with my peelings, those you can actually put into stock. And so utilizing any of these trimmings for stock. You want to ensure that your knife is nice and sharp. If it's not sharp, you're not going to get precise cuts. You also want to make sure that your cutting board is really stable. If your thing is moving around, you're going to have a difficult time with these knife cuts. So using a curled fingers, making sure you're not going to cut yourself, you want to square off your carrot. So that's just providing a flat surface here, turning it over so you have more stability. And now you can create more flat surfaces by just doing some squaring off, is what we call it. So we do this so that you can end up getting really straight cuts in the end. Now you might be asking, wow, this is such a waste of a carrot. Yes, that is correct. And fortunately, these ingredients are very affordable so that you can practice these knife cuts, and you can definitely utilize these carrots for stock. You can cook the potatoes however you want after the fact, but the thing is, you have to learn how to do the cuts first and then be able to apply them and practice them without having so much waste. So utilizing these more affordable ingredients will help to hone this process. So the first cut I'm doing is the fine Julienne. You'll see here that I've compared the measurement to my guide, and every time I cut a piece, I'm all peeling it off, and every time I look at my knife, I'm actually closing one eye so that I can try my best to get a precise measurement. Every time I make these additional cuts here, so this is the fine Julienne, I have that curled finger, ensuring that I'm not cutting into my nails or anything like that, okay? Now I didn't require you to do a fine brunoise from your knife cuts, but this is where it would come from. You could do a fine brunoise with these as well. So that's your fine Julienne. Now let's move on to the Julienne. This is going to be 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches. So these are very, very thin kind of matchsticks. So doing my best to ensure that I have a nice flat surface for my carrot, and I'm going to do my measurement for that 1/8 of an inch, and that is going to be your Julienne. Now the reason why I'm using the rest of this carrot here is I want to show you that you can do these cuts with not only the carrot, but you can do them with potato as well. So I'm just going to do one real quick with the carrot, and then later on you'll see I'll finish it with the potato. I'm just comparing it here to my knife guide, and it looks like I'm good to go. So from the Julienne, that is where you can cut your brunoise. So I'll save a couple of Juliennes here, and you see the comparison from the fine Julienne to the Julienne. You have about half the size of that. And I'll take a couple of out so that I can cut my brunoise. So you can get 2 cuts out of 1, technically. How great is that? Now our next cut, I'm going to use a potato. I'm already squaring it off here, and the next cut is called a batone. Batone you might see in the future to make French fries or stuff like that. And you might be asking, okay, what is the point of learning all of these different knife cuts? Well, the purpose of understanding how to cut things precisely and consistently is it gives you that discipline that's required in professionalism. Additionally, you ensure that everything that's being cooked is of even and consistent cooking time. And when you are finished with your cooking, then you can definitely see that, oh, if one is big and one is small, they're going to cook at different rates. So making sure that you have consistent sized pieces helps you in the long run. So I squared off my potato, and now I'm cutting my batone. And so the batone here, it's great because from the batone you can also get your small dice. So I'm just cutting those pieces for the batone first, and then from there I will get my small dice. Now from here I can get my small dice. Just make sure that you're doing your best to make these as perfectly square as possible. That's the good thing about using a cheap potato, is that if you mess up and I gave you 4 potatoes, you can definitely try again, try again, try again, and try again. Believe me, when I was in culinary school, I went through a lot of potatoes to get this right. So you might get a little frustrated and it might be a little bit tedious for you, but just remember, in the long run, it's completely worth it to understand and to practice knife cuts such as these. You'll see them applied in all of your future recipes as well. So not to worry. All of your work is not being wasted, I promise. Now let's do medium dice. This is a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. This is probably the most popular size, is the medium dice. So again, using the potato and then trying my best to make sure that it's straight to do my medium dice. And then I'm going to just get those as square as possible. Last but not least, we have large dice. You might notice that this particular size is a little bit on the more difficult side. I noticed that because it's a large piece, that sometimes students have trouble making it square. Just keep trying. Now it's time for our onion. You're going to be doing a sliced and diced onion. So you want to take off the top and the bottom of the onion, and then you just use a paring knife. So I've switched from the chef's knife now. I'm going to use a paring knife, and I will make just a little slit on the outside of the onion so I can peel off the peel, and also sometimes the first layer of the onion. And then I'll be ready to actually cut my onion. Some of these cleaner peelings you can actually utilize in your stock as well. Some of the dirtier ones with excess dirt, you don't want to use those. Okay, here we go. So I'm cutting my onion in half, and with half of it I'm going to slice, and with the other half I'm going to dice. Now, if you've struggled with cutting onions before, just know that the best way to ensure that you're not going to be crying through the process is to have a nice sharp knife. So I went ahead and I honed my knife to make sure that everything is ready, and now I'm ready to slice. So again, with that curled hand, and I want to do slices that are about 1/8 of an inch thick. So similar to what I did for the Julienne. Okay, so that's your sliced onion, and no crying here. Next is the diced onion. So with the diced onion, again, making sure your knife is nice and honed, you want to push your knife through about a half an inch in width, and then you don't want to push the knife all the way through, or else it'll be very difficult to do these dices. And then once you've done your little incisions here, you're going to come around with your knife and then make cuts that are the same width. So at that half an inch, quarter of an inch by size. And then from there, you'll be able to do nice clean dices. Now, if you notice here, I'm separating some of the diced onion with a little bit of that edge. It can be difficult to get that edge as precisely as you would like. And so I like to get my nice precise pieces in the container first. And then I can use the rest of that chopped onion for either another purpose, or I can use it for something where you're not looking, or you're not having to make sure that those cuts are so precise. Now I wanted to make sure that I have enough Brunoise and Julienne so that I could fill my little containers, because in your assignment it asks for a quarter cup each of those things. So I'm just using a little bit more potato to finish those cuts up. And now you're all done. You have all of the knife cuts that are required for this assignment. Just know that in the future, you will really appreciate having these skills, and hopefully you appreciate it now as well. It might be a little tedious and frustrating at first, but keep at it, and I promise you will improve in your speed and your accuracy. Good luck!